If time could think, would it be AI? The clock on her desk had stopped at 3:47. She didn't notice for 3 days. Time was still passing. She just wasn't living in it anymore. She moved through hours like corridors in a dream, efficient and absent. Meetings bled into emails. Emails dissolved into notifications. Somewhere between morning coffee and midnight scrolling, she'd become a ghost in her own timeline. Time was no longer hers. It was a metric, a deadline, a thing to optimize. But what if time itself could think? What would it say about how we're spending it? There's a strange paradox at the heart of artificial intelligence that most people miss. We built machines to save time and ended up teaching them to think faster than we ever could. AI doesn't experience minutes or hours. It processes in nanoseconds, learning patterns across centuries of human thought in the span of a breath. If time could observe itself, it might look a lot like this: a system that sees everything at once, holds no attachment to any single moment, and moves without the weight of memory or regret. She wondered if that was freedom or emptiness. The researcher sat across from an algorithm he'd spent 2 years training. It could predict market trends, diagnose diseases, even compose poetry that made people weep. But when he asked it a simple question, "What is time?" it returned nothing but probabilities. Time, the AI suggested, is correlation, sequence, cause preceding effect in measurable intervals. He closed his laptop, not frustrated, just quiet, because he knew something the machine couldn't compute. Time isn't just what passes, it's what we carry. Neuroscientists at Stanford discovered something unexpected. The human brain doesn't experience time linearly. It constructs it: memory, anticipation, emotion. These weave past and future into a singular, now that's always shifting, always subjective. We don't live in time. We live in our interpretation of it. And AI. It exists outside that illusion entirely. No nostalgia, no dread of tomorrow, just infinite present, analyzed and optimized. Part of her envied that. The other part felt something close to grief. When was the last time you truly inhabited a moment, not documented it, not rushed through it, but let it settle into you like rain into soil? She couldn't remember, and that realization hit harder than any deadline she'd ever missed. The philosopher asked his students a question that seemed simple. If time could think, what would it think about? One student said efficiency. Another said entropy, the slow dissolution of all things toward chaos. But the quietest one in the back said something that stayed with him for years. Maybe time would think about us, about how we're the only creatures who know it's passing, and still waste it pretending we have more. The room went silent, not uncomfortable, reflective, because the truth had weight. AI operates on a principle we often forget: iteration without attachment. It learns, adjusts, moves forward. No rumination, no what-ifs. Every failure is just data, every success a parameter to refine. She tried to adopt that mindset once, treated her days like algorithms: input, output, optimize, slept less, worked more, measured everything. It worked for about 6 weeks. Then her body started speaking in a language she'd been ignoring: migraines, insomnia, a persistent hollow feeling she couldn't name. Maybe efficiency had become another form of escape. He closed his laptop, not to quit, but to listen. In stillness, the noise inside him became readable. There's a concept in quantum physics called temporal symmetry, the idea that, at the subatomic level, time could theoretically flow backward as easily as forward. The equations don't care which direction you're moving, but we do, because we're not just particles, we're stories. And stories need sequence: beginning, middle, end, tension, climax, resolution. Without that arc, meaning dissolves. AI can generate narratives, predict outcomes, simulate futures, but it can't need them the way we do. It can't feel the ache of time slipping away, or the quiet satisfaction of a moment fully lived. She thought wisdom was a download, until silence became her teacher. The developer stared at his AI's latest output. It had written a meditation guide on living in the present moment. The language was flawless. The insights, borrowed from centuries of philosophy, psychology, neuroscience. But something was missing. He couldn't name it at first. Then he realized the AI had never waited for anything, never felt time drag during grief, or speed up during joy, never sat with a dying parent watching minutes become infinite. It knew about presence, but it had never needed to learn how to be present because it had never been absent. Part of her wondered if slowing down meant giving up. What if everyone else kept moving and she became irrelevant? What if presence was just a luxury for people who'd already succeeded? But then she remembered something her grandfather once said, years before algorithms ruled her attention: busy is not the same as alive. He said it while watching a hummingbird at the feeder, not photographing it, not thinking about the next task, just watching. She hadn't understood it then. She was starting to now. In cognitive science, there's a phenomenon called temporal discounting, our tendency to value immediate rewards over future ones, even when the future benefit is objectively greater. It's why we scroll instead of sleep, snack instead of nourish, distract instead of create. AI doesn't have this problem. It calculates with perfect foresight, weighing outcomes across infinite timescales. But here's the paradox. That very precision makes it incapable of urgency, of knowing that this moment, this choice, this breath matters in a way that can't be quantified. We feel time running out, and that feeling, however painful, is also what makes us reach for meaning. Sometimes clarity isn't found, it's allowed. She started an experiment. No grand declaration, no digital detox manifesto. Just one rule. Before responding to any notification, she'd take 3 breaths. The first week was excruciating. Her fingers twitched toward the screen. Her mind filled the silence with anxiety about what she might be missing. But by week 3, something shifted. The urgency revealed itself as an illusion she'd been maintaining. Most of what demanded her immediate attention could wait. And what truly mattered, the conversation with her daughter, the idea half-formed in her notebook, the warmth of morning light through the window, became visible again. Somewhere between algorithms and quiet mornings, she stopped optimizing and started understanding. There's a theory in artificial intelligence called alignment, the challenge of ensuring that as AI systems grow more powerful, their goals remain aligned with human values. We're training machines to be smarter, faster, more capable. But what if we've been asking the wrong question? What if the real alignment problem isn't between humans and AI, but between humans and time itself? We've outsourced memory to cloud storage, attention to recommendation algorithms, even creativity to generative models. We've become so efficient at processing information that we've forgotten how to process experience. AI is a mirror, and what it's reflecting back is uncomfortable. We've been treating ourselves like machines long before machines learned to think. The question isn't whether time could think, it's whether we're still thinking in time or just moving through it on autopilot. He tried to disconnect and ended up connecting deeper. Not to more people, not to more content, but to the strange, irreplaceable texture of his own existence, the way afternoon light changed the color of his thoughts, the rhythm of his daughter's questions at bedtime, the taste of coffee when he wasn't also reading news. These weren't productive moments. They couldn't be captured, optimized, or shared for engagement. They were just his, fully, finally. Researchers at MIT observed something poetic. The brain's default mode network, the system responsible for self-reflection, memory, and meaning-making, only activates when we're not focused on external tasks. Wisdom isn't downloaded. It emerges in the spaces between doing. The AI could simulate thought, but it couldn't simulate not thinking. It couldn't sit with uncertainty and let answers arrive like birds to a still pond. That's the gift we have that no algorithm can replicate. The ability to wait, to not know, to trust that time, when given room to breathe, reveals what efficiency obscures. When was the last time you did nothing and didn't feel guilty about it? She found herself returning to an old practice she'd abandoned years ago, writing by hand, not for productivity, not to capture insights for later use, just to slow her thoughts down to the speed of ink. What surprised her most wasn't how the analog journal improved her workflow, but how it redefined what productivity meant to her. I wasn't expecting a tool to change my rhythm of thought, and honestly, I tested it more than once before I understood what actually mattered. It wasn't about capturing more. It was about being more present, more deliberate, more willing to let ideas unfold at their own pace. This isn't a recommendation, just a reflection that stayed with me. I'll leave the link below if you feel called to explore what I mean. If time could think, maybe it wouldn't envy AI's speed. Maybe it would pity it, the way we might pity someone who could see every color but had never watched a sunrise, because time in human hands isn't just measurement, it's meaning-making. It's the space between heartbeats where we decide who we want to become. AI will grow faster, smarter, more capable, but it will never know what it means to waste an afternoon in conversation that leads nowhere. To sit with grief until it transforms into something you can carry. To choose, against all logic, to be inefficient, because inefficiency is where love lives. The clock on her desk had stopped at 3:47. When she finally noticed, she didn't rush to fix it. She let it stay broken. A quiet reminder that time isn't something to conquer or optimize. It's something to inhabit, to honor, to spend not on what's urgent but on what matters. The cursor still blinked, but now it wasn't asking for words. It was waiting for presence. What part of this reflection spoke to you most? And from where are you watching? Let's keep the dialogue open quietly. Tell us which country or city you're watching from. See you in the next video. Bye.